Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome here to race number 31 and the second race of the Elite Eight for the debut season of the PCSRA Busch Series. Getting ready to go racing for the United Rentals 250. 19 laps about to be underway here at Talladega Super Speedway, and it was a very calm and collective truck series race we had here yesterday. We're going to see what kind of racing we're going to have here today here at Talladega. Of course, this is setting ourselves up for what should be an interesting elimination race next week at Homestead Miami Speedway. On the pole is Blake Peppers in the 90 machine. Blake Peppers has had a struggling, has been having a good season despite not making the playoffs. He is 15th in points, third highest of the drivers who did not make the playoffs. Alongside is Annika Ritchie. She comes in this race 7 points above the cut line. We'll see where she's going to be at after today's race. Diego Marquez in row number 2. He is 13th in the points, the highest of the drivers who also did not make the playoffs. And April Winters in the 25, who will be racing with her sister, Alex Winters, next season in the Busch Series, replacing Jimmy Baker. Winters is 30th in the standings. So it should be an interesting race we're going to have here today. We're going to show you the rest of your starting lineup. Remember where your 8 drivers battling for the championship are running. Let's get these cars moving. As long as nobody is having any issues, we should be good to go. Your playoff standings are this. Azar Mirmez is 16 points ahead of the cut line entering today's race. Second place is Jay Green, 13 points ahead of the cut line. Annika Ritchie, 7 points ahead of the cut line. And Malin Lee, who is 2 points ahead of the cut line. 2 points below is Elizabeth Gardner. Liliana Bates has 4 points below the cut line. Lucy Myers is 5 points below the cut line. And Drake Robertson was the lowest of our playoff drivers after our last race 2 weeks ago at Kansas. He is 22 points below the cut line. So Drake Robertson really needs a good run here today, or he could find himself heading into next week's race at Homestead Miami Speedway in a must-win situation. And to save you guys a little bit of time, I'm just going to go ahead and do this because I just want to save you guys some time so we can get to the green flag for you guys. Looks like no one is having any issues, so we're going to get this party started. Pace car is pulling off. Remember, the start-finish line is not in the center of the tri-oval like it is at Daytona and other super speedways. And we're about set for 19 laps of racing for the United Rentals 250. If a playoff driver wins, they're into the championship 4, regardless what happens next week at Homestead for the elimination race. And the United Rentals 250 at Talladega is green. Let's go racing, drivers. Kyle Langland poked out to the outside, trying to make something work, but unfortunately, he's going to get drop kicked to the back. We have sunny conditions for this Busch race today versus cloudy conditions we had to endure in yesterday's Truck Series race. So that should make things a little bit more interesting. And remember, in the Winston Cup Series, we had a fuel mileage race that played its part into who made the playoffs and who didn't. These Busch cars can make it 19 laps on a tank of fuel. But 13 gallons of fuel for the Winston Cup Series tomorrow is going to make things a little bit interesting. As Annika Ritchie, a playoff driver, going to lead this race, and not too far behind her is another playoff driver in Lucy Myers. Lucy Myers is 5 points below the cut line. But as I said, if you win, you're in the championship 4, regardless what happens next race. Next week will be the Ford race weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Time TBD on race race time I'm going for. I'm either going for a noon or I'm going to do a night race at Homestead. That's uh, has not been determined, but I will give you guys any updates on that as soon as I can. Excuse me. Annika Ritchie watched Alina and Anthony Ritchie race in yesterday's Truck Series race. And the 12 drivers that made the playoffs here in the Busch Series are going to Winston Cup next season, including Darby King, Annika Ritchie. So we wish those drivers good luck in that series. I'll start putting the full names in the points for next season, so we are making sure who is who. But you basically already know who's driving who, so there you go. Prudence Martindale in the 23 machine. Prudence, who will be back with this team next year, 24th in the points. Jimmy Baker in the 35 was announced he will not be back with that ride next season because Alex Winters, who made the playoffs in the Truck Series, is going to be in that ride next season. And of course, if you are not aware of the situation, the drivers who made the playoffs for Trucks and Busch will move up. They'll move up to a respective series, especially the drivers who really struggled in the Winston Cup Series. They're moving down to this series. And the drivers who struggled in this series may be moving down to Trucks. Taylor Valley, I know, is going to be back in the Busch Series next season, along with Tula Zapola. Taylor Valley will be back with the Aaron's Dream Machine next season. Tula Zapola, I believe, is moving over to replace Annika Ritchie in the one car next season. Just to make sure they are locked into the show. Or Taylor Valley actually will be replacing somebody. Oh, yeah, she's actually going to move over to the 8 car next season. Of course, Mayla Lee's going to Winston Cup next season, along with Elizabeth Gardner. So we're going to have some new rookies in the Winston Cup Series next season. Going to be excited to see how that goes. Shyla Askarov is also coming up to the Busch Series, even though she did not have the season in trucks. Even though, yes, she did find victory lane, but as I mentioned, in the Truck Series, in that series, was not high enough in points to have that win count for a spot into the playoffs. As Suni Sue is about to lose the draft here. There's the points leader, Azara Mirmoez, who will be saying goodbye to the Busch Series and go up to Winston Cup Series. Which means we'll have at least one Amir Moez driver in all 3 series, because Ibone Amir Moez will be racing in the Truck Series next season. She'll be replacing one of the drivers who made the playoffs, like Jesse Art in the 11 next season. Liliana Beta going to be going to Winston Cup next season. Congratulations to her. Not sure what ride she's going to be driving for next season, but she's going to Winston Cup Racing. And like I said, for the 12 drivers that made the playoffs, they're going Winston Cup Racing next season. Jay Green will be Winston Cup Racing. Darby King will go Winston Cup Racing. We're having a new lineup at Chance 2 Motorsports, because both of their drivers are moving up to Winston Cup next year. Drake Robertson, regardless what happens the remainder of this season, he's also going to Winston Cup next season. Annika Ritchie, still your race leader. Annika Ritchie, if she wins today, this would punch her ticket into the championship 4, regardless what happens next week at Homestead, Miami. So she wants to go into that elimination race worry-free, knowing she will be in the final 4. The problem for her, however, is that her playoff points will not apply for the Toronto weekend because everybody will be on an even playing field at 4,000 points apiece. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing how Alex Winters will do in the Busch Series. Of course, she's never raced with her sister April. The only time I've seen both of them race at one time is when April's replacing Alex due to the fact Alex was not 18. So there you go. So it's going to be very interesting how the Winter sisters will race. And of course, they're both going to be in the Busch Series. So neither of them are going to rely on each other on how they did in the truck race, Busch race, blah, 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 blah. Really excited to have Ebony Amirwas back in the racing world. She took some time off after the Monster Energy Series concluded in 2023. Bart Simpson going to be back in that 32 machine next season. Justin Hugo will return to the 10. I know Carolina Bradley, who's racing in the Truck Series, will be back for another season. She'll also run part-time here in the Busch Series next season. And after this season, the top 30 in the owner points for the top 30 in the Busch Series would be locked into every race next season, would be locked into Daytona. Right now, April Winters holds that spot. Everybody below the cut line. I know Taylor Valley and Tula Topola will have, Tula Topola is moving to the 1, so he won't have to worry about owner points. Taylor Valley, I believe, is also going to be moving to a ride that's getting vacated, so she may not be in the 99. And of course, that is to lock yourself into the show. So that way you don't have to compete in go or go home qualifying. So the 99 and the 19, I know next season when we have the season 2 of what this will be called, the WRA Presents the NASCAR Busch Series, the 19 and 99 would have to qualify on time. Even though Taylor Valley has been to victory lane, whereas Tula Topola has not. And of course, Taylor Valley, Tula Topola will not be eligible for the Rookie of the Year honors because of the fact they took part in more than 7 Busch races. That's the other thing I do need to mention. Any part-time driver that runs more than 7 Busch races will no longer qualify themselves for the Rookie of the Year honors, which will start that up next season. If a driver makes the playoffs, that's a rookie next season, they win the Rookie of the Year honors regardless how they do in the playoffs. Diego Marquez in the 2, going to go to the race league. Drake Robinson, by the way, took the lead as Annika Ritchie dropped back a bit. Now, remember, Drake Robertson is below the cut line by 22 points, so he needs a miracle because he doesn't want to enter Homestead in a must-win situation. Suni Asu's back here at the... Suni Asu's launch is going to have a pretty bad points day. The top 27 in the Truck Series, as far as owner points are concerned, will be locked into the show for Daytona next season. The schedules were released today. I will have a video of that before this race, or actually, let me rephrase that. I will have a video of that schedule reveal right in between the All-Star race weekend and the Charlotte videos that you've already seen. So I will have that video. It's already been made and all that. So yeah. There's Jay Green in the 6th. Knowing he'll be in Winston Cup next season as Noah Parker's losing the draft. Noah Parker's friend Betty Barrett is in the playoffs in the Winston Cup Series, and you will see her as well as the other 39 drivers next week or tomorrow for the Winston Cup Series as we cap off the race weekend from Dega. Diego Marquez still looking for his first win of the year, 13th in the points. And remember, the 25 needs to have a good run today because, as I was talking about earlier, is that the top 30 in Busch would be locked into the show after the finale at Toronto. And that's important because we're going to have a 40-car field, and there's a possibility a lot of good drivers are going to go home. And I'll mention about that when we get to Daytona next year. Down to 3 laps of racing to go. Truck Series next season will have a full 40 truck field. Which means we're going to have 13 drivers every week trying to qualify their way into every race of the 23 that are going to be on the schedule that you've already seen, or you can look at it on the Discord. As here comes Lucy Myers. Now remember, Lucy Myers is below the cut line, but if she goes to victory lane, regardless what happens next week at Homestead, she's in the final 4. Keep that in mind. Getting pushed by her teammate Brad Blackman, who was recently eliminated from the playoffs, but he's going Winston Cup racing next season since he made the playoffs. Darby King, Leela Bakai, Danny Rant going back to Winston Cup. Not surprised for Leela Bakai because she does have some previous experience in Cup, but never in Winston Cup. So that'll be something new she's looking forward to. As somebody is off the pace, it looks like the 19 car. Somebody's off the pace. I don't know who that is. Oh, it's Elizabeth Gardner. That's a playoff contender. And she was 2 points below the cut line. Oh, no. And Kat Saramirn is out of the race with a valve issue. So that's our second driver who has troubles. As the white flag is out for Lucy Myers. 1 more lap to go, presented by Credit One Bank. That means Elizabeth Gardner is going to have to win next week at Homestead to make the final 4. Because this is going to kill her in the points, and it held up a number of playoff drivers. Here comes the 18 of Kevin Lambert, trying to make sure Lucy Myers does not make the final 4. But did he make his move too soon? Here they come off of turn number 4 for the final time. Kevin Lambert, who has not been to victory lane this season, is going to come through the tri-oval, and Kevin Lambert is going to win the United Rentals 250 at Talladega. And denies a playoff driver's advancement into the championship 4. Oh, man, that was an interesting race. And only the top 10 in this lead pack had the chance to win that race. Still waiting for the 29 to cross the finish line. A header problem, and that's going to put her 39th, Elizabeth Gardner, and that's a tough break. So Lambert and Danny Rand will get... Lambert wins, Danny Rand second, as the standings are now official. This could set ourselves up for a very interesting elimination race next week at Homestead. Jumianka gets third, Brad Blackman fourth. Lucy Myers was the highest of the playoff drivers in fifth, and she beat a number of drivers ahead of her in the standings. So we're going to have to see where this is going to situate her. Might put her in a very good spot to possibly make the Final Four to compete for the championship at Toronto. Leela Bakai, great run for a driver who was already eliminated from the playoffs in sixth. Prudence Martindale seventh. Jimmy Baker eighth. Landon Ching ninth. And Blake Peppers in 10th. Those 10 drivers were the only 10 in that first group. Everybody else got held up in that process, and only one playoff driver in Lucy Myers finished in the top 10. Where did the other 7 finish? Annika Ritchie 12th. Drake Robertson 16th. We're going to have to see where this is going to situate him. Good news for him, he was ahead of a number of playoff drivers who didn't have a good result today. Mayla Lee 18th. Zara Mirmos 22nd. Looking down through the rest of the finishing results here. Jay Green 29th. Where did Liliana Bates? She finished in 35th. Ugh. This could also put Liliana Bates possibly in a must-win situation going into Homestead. And trying to see if there's any other playoff drivers I'm missing. Got the 92, got the 81, the 6th, 29th. That's not a good run. And then, of course, Elizabeth Gardner finished out of the race with a header problem, and Kat Serra also finished out of the race with a valve issue. So we had 38 drivers finish on the lead lap. Suni Su was the last of them, and then 2 drivers did not finish the race, and nobody finished a lap down in a caution-free race. But Kevin Lambert will go to victory lane, and let me see if this is the first win for Joe Gibbs Racing, because Noah Parker did not. Yeah, I am correct. This is the first win for Joe Gibbs Racing, and Lambert was 29th in the points. So a driver who's struggling in the points gets their first win of the year. Hope you guys enjoyed today's race from Dega. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the PCS Rally Crew today. We showed your full finish results, your point standings, and playoff points. Look at that 4th place, that battle, and we're going to be interesting for the final elimination race for the Busch Series next week at Homestead. We're going to finish up this race weekend from Dega with the Winston Cup from here at Dega. Then we're off to Homestead next week for Trucks, Busch, and Winston Cup Series elimination races to settle who will be our Final Four to compete for the championship at Toronto. Until then, I've been Dita Full signing off. We'll see you guys next time as you've been watching yet another broadcast of PCS Rally TV, where champions are made since 2010 and the best in our racing around the world since 2017.